What's up, witches? Hi, I'm Claudia.
And I'm Jess.
And welcome to True Crime Coven. Hey Jess, you alright?
Hey Claudia, I'm good. How are you?
I was like...
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks for asking. No, once again I've got a cold, but I mean, what's new at this point? I'll just tell you when I don't have a cold.
Fair.
But no, that's it.
Got funky new hair?
I have got funky new hair. Means nothing in a podcast format.
No, it doesn't. But
for anyone who cares, which is no one, it's half pink, half black.
And you've got a fringe now.
I've got a fringe. Yeah, I used to have a fringe for years. Did you? You never met me with a fringe, did you?
Maybe when we very first met, like before we started talking. I think when I just started on the ward, you might have had a fringe.
Yeah, so I had a fringe for years. Oh my god, this microphone is to my head.
I can just see it slowly sinking.
So I had a fringe for years at one point, and I then didn't for 2 years. Now I do. That's honestly, like, let's not even... That's so boring.
Yeah, cool story, bro.
But yeah, so I guess this could potentially be one of our last episodes. Like, our last... Well, you could...
Well, my last episode.
Yeah.
You're carrying on.
When are you due? I should know.
The 2nd of October. So literally
in
2 weeks.
Oh, I did know that. Yeah, it's the day before Mikey's birthday.
Is it?
It is.
There's so many people born in October. Currently, the due date is my best friend's husband's birthday.
I guess October because a lot of people have sex around Christmas.
Yeah.
And New Year's. Like you dirty woman.
A New Year baby. But yeah, if she's 12 days late, she's on Aiden's birthday.
Oh, that'll be expensive for you.
Yeah.
/ awful for Aiden because, like, who cares about the dad?
I know, literally. Also, I worked out that on her 21st birthday will be his 50th.
Oh, that's cute.
Yes, so I was like, joint birthday party.
Unless she's like, I'm too cool for that, man.
Yeah, but yeah, she probably will be. But I'll be like, don't expect to lift home from town because me and your dad are getting shit-faced.
Well, as you might be able to hear, me and Jess are recording separately, not because I have a cold, but just because Jess is very heavily pregnant. So It's fair enough that she doesn't want to be driving half an hour to me and half an hour back.
Also, your stairs are like weirdly steep in your house.
Okay, but there's not that many of them.
No, there's not. It is only one flight, but they are quite steep.
I don't live in a mansion. It's literally a tiny house that I live in. Tiny house.
They're steeper than mine.
Yeah, but there's more in yours.
Yeah, there's 2 flights.
Bam, coming at you. So, yeah, we are recording separately. And as we've said before, we hope that Jess won't just disappear. But also, you know...
Probably will.
Yeah, she could disappear halfway through this episode, to be honest. Please
that'll be an exciting episode.
So, it's True Crime Week. And as I am editing this week, should we just get to it?
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know how to edit.
So this is a disaster on Monday, then we know why.
Yeah. I also don't even know how I'm going to get this out to Monday. So if you're listening to this and it's come out any other day other than this Monday, just know it's because we are recording on Friday. I have work Saturday, Sunday for 12 hours each day.
Ooh.
So
Mikey's going to be editing this and then teaching you.
Yeah. I know basics. So anyway, let's get to it. Without further ado, let's have some true crime.
I'm excited.
So, Jess, I want us to just sit a moment and cast our minds back to February 2020.
Oh, God.
A time when COVID, or the coronavirus pandemic, as we first called it, was something just on the news. It hadn't quite reached the UK.
Yeah.
It was a real worry, but also... I mean, I was quite worried about it because I'd been following it and I thought, yeah, this is going to be a thing. I do remember having conversations with people at work who were like, oh, God, they've blown this all out of proportion. This isn't even going to be a thing.
To be fair, I was a bit on the... I was like, oh, it's just going to be like swine flu. Like It might come over here. It might shut a few schools. Might stop everything for a few weeks, but it'll be fine.
Yeah, I think, don't get it wrong, I don't think I expected it to carry on for as long as it has.
Yeah.
Because it is still going on despite,
Yeah.
But yeah, there are definitely people I know who are like, oh God, this is such a nothing. And I was like, no, I think this is something.
Yeah, this is a bit more than... Like, I didn't think it was nothing, but I didn't think it would be a full global pandemic that...
No.
Yeah.
That would literally, like, define time and space.
Literally.
And define a generation, let's be honest. Like, not our generation, but for a lot of kids, this will define their generation.
God, yeah. Imagine being a kid that was born in the pandemic and you didn't socialise with other children until you were, like, 1.5, 2
to be
years
fair,
old.
I don't think it's going to matter for them.
No.
I think it's going to be more like those who are doing, like, imagine turning 8. Like, I know people who turned 18. One of my friend's colleagues, she's younger than me. Obviously, the colleague's younger than her. So it's really weird. Like, very lovely person, but sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm hanging out with an 18-year-old. But they're very lovely. They turned 18 during the pandemic, and I just think that must be mad.
Like, what? You couldn't do anything for your birthday. You don't...
No, and like, I just think being in school in general during the pandemic, like, we all say, oh yeah, we would have loved to get time off school, but
A year and a half.
no, you do really want to socialise at that age.
Yeah.
And being stuck inside of your parents. I mean, at least they had social media. Back in our days,
But also, social media, like, as good as social media is.
But then they would have at least been able to, like,
Talk
you know,
to
we
their
would have been on
friends,
MSN and MySpace.
Nothing wrong with MSN.
And texting, I mean, that would have cost us a fortune.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, and you could have gone
credit.
to the shop and topped up your credit.
That used to take about 5 minutes to top up. You used to call up, put the code in.
Oh, God, yeah.
So don't ask me the specifics of what I was up to in February of 2020. I think I was just working. But I don't really even remember what I did yesterday. Nope. So, but pre-COVID life seems like a century ago, doesn't it?
Oh, God, yeah. It's a different world.
Mind you, even though I'm pro-mask, I do miss not having to wear one at work.
Yeah.
That was a nice time. And also I know nurses who have never not worn a mask at work other than like for a year when they were a student.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and COVID has redefined nursing, but that's by the way. So I tried to look up headlines from February 2020, and it appears that, understandably, the news was mostly just speaking about COVID because the world was very concerned, even if our Prime Minister was not. You know.
I'd like to say I'd like to see it's good to see in the back of him, but the next person's not even better, is it?
Oh, honestly, it's Theresa May 2.0.
How many prime ministers do we need to get through before they hold a general election?
It's almost like the party is shit. But let's not get political. So...
Yeah, two NHS workers, I think we're a bit biased on who should run the country, but that's by the by.
So, yeah, it appears that most of the news was COVID-related, understandably.
Yeah.
But other than that, some of the headlines I found of note were... so, of course, the date became an 8-digit palindrome on the 2nd of February, so 02022020.
Yeah.
Very exciting, I guess, if you're into that sort of thing. A lot of people are. Something that I would go, oh, cool.
Yeah, I'd write it down at work and go, oh, that's interesting, and then completely forget about it.
And I suppose if you're someone who doesn't write the date, you might not even notice.
Yeah.
On February 5th, 2020, actor Kirk Douglas died at the age of 103.
Ooh, fair play.
Yeah, I know the name, couldn't put a face to it.
Yeah.
Pretty good innings, though, 103. Not bad.
I'd be happy with that.
The Korean film Parasite became the first non-English film to win the Best Picture at the Oscars.
Do you know what? I remember that.
I remember that. And do you remember that everyone got mad because they said that the Korean director Bong Joon-ho should have made his Korean film set in Korea in English.
Oh.
Do you remember everyone saying that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And it's like, really? And also, if you're not prepared to watch a film because it's got subtitles, you are going to miss out on so many amazing films in your life.
Oh my God, I know.
And like, fair enough if you've got
like
a good reason, such as like being dyslexic or something that makes it difficult to read subtitles.
Yeah.
You know, dubbed versions exist for that reason. But if you're just lazy...
Yeah, like, come on, just read it. Like,
Because it will always be better in Korean because that's how it was intended to be.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen it, first of all, it's been 2.5 years, so a bit late.
Yeah,
but also, fantastic film.
Great film.
And the award was really
Rightly
highly deserved.
Yeah.
Also of note, my late friend Ryan did a podcast once upon a time where he reviewed films, and he actually reviewed Parasite, and it's a great episode. I think it was his first episode.
Oh, really?
That's Silver Screen Unseen. So if anyone would like to go and listen to a great friend of mine who I miss every day, go and check that out. Silver Screen Unseen. Really good episode. Also, if you like the band, I want to say As December Falls, but I could be wrong and have to end up editing this out. I believe she was on that episode with him. And last thing of note, though, quick trigger warning here for rape, but Harvey Weinstein was convicted of rape by a Manhattan jury on February 24th, 2020. And as much as I didn't want to include that, it was a bit of a win for those who, obviously he would then be found dead in his cell. We're in what would be another conspiracy. But hey. But other than that, it was pretty much all COVID news.
Yeah.
However, life on the whole in the Western world was ticking along as normal. Now, the reason we are casting our minds back to February 2020 today is because, of course, our case today took place in February 2020.
I thought it might.
What gave you that thought?
That's just a hunch.
When a couple's lives were going to change forever. And not because of a highly contagious and unpredictable virus. So today, the trigger warning is for, unfortunately, domestic violence. This case is full of it. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Not that that's horrific enough, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So if that's something that you can't listen to, our hearts go out to you. We hope you're getting support in whatever way that affected you. And just look after yourself. We'll see you next week or, next time. Our case today takes place in the city of Winter Park in Florida. Now, this is our first Floridian case.
Ooh,
and I don't know if I've actually spoken about the whole Florida thing before, because obviously you say Florida and everyone's like, Florida man headlines.
Yeah.
So yeah, people always go on about like Florida man and Florida. Oh my God, such a crazy state. I don't know if I've spoken about this before, but it's one of my favourite little like tidbits. Florida is actually no crazier than any other state in America, or probably anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
But Florida has a law or legislation that allows reporters and news agencies to get hold of all sort of charges and police information. I can't remember the actual terms.
Oh,
Basically, it's all public.
Yeah.
Whereas in other states, things like that aren't necessarily made public. So it's not that Florida has crazier cases or more cases. It's just that it's available to
more
reporters
accessible
and journalists.
Yeah.
So the whole Florida thing of like, oh my God, it's so crazy. It ain't.
It is not.
America's crazy in general. The world is crazy in general. It's just they can get there.
Yeah, I bet if you were able to like read about your every little crime that happened in Bristol, like just for us, like round the corner from us, there would be a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
And there'd be some like you'll look at it and go, why? Why did you do that?
Exactly. I mean, I think I've spoken before about how like a woman in Aberystwyth bit a car.
Yes, yeah, you have.
And that's a very, like, Florida man bites a car. Like, very Florida headline.
Yeah.
And that's just one thing that we know about.
Yeah.
Weird things happen all the time.
Well, yeah, people are strange.
So that's my tidbit. On Tuesday, the 25th of February, 2020, Sarah Boone was arrested in connection with her boyfriend Jorge Torres Jr.'s death. And the story she told police, when questioned, was odd. I just want to say first, before I start this, there are loads of videos on YouTube about this case, and one of the main videos calls Jorge Torres Jr. Jorge throughout the entire thing. Now, it is spelt like Jorge with Jorge, but Sarah calls him George, his brother calls him George, the police call him George, so it is George. Okay, that guy got it wrong. Yeah. So if anyone's listening, they're like, it's Jorge. It's not. I'm like so sure it's George.
I know someone called Georgia who spells her name Jorjia.
Yeah,
so
I mean...
it's not unheard of. It's not common, but it's not unheard of, yeah.
I understand why they call him Jorge as well, because the other names in his family are quite Spanish. So, like, he's got a brother called Juan, who we'll mention later on.
Oh, okay.
So it's not, you would assume. And I assumed until,
So you just see it written down.
I'm so sure it's George.
Yeah.
So, on February 23rd, 2020, 42-year-old Sarah Boone and her boyfriend, 42-year-old Jorge Torres Jr., had planned a date night together, where they were going to share a bottle of Chardonnay whilst they did puzzles and painted. The couple had been together for about 3 years, having met in early 2017, and moved in with each other within a few months of dating. As the evening went on, however, Sarah said that they decided to play a game of hide and seek. At first, I see your face, Jess, and I feel the same way.
Yeah. Did you say they're 42 years old?
They're 42 years old.
And it's just the two of them?
Yeah, we'll get to this.
Okay. I was going to say, other than that, it sounds like quite a nice little date night.
Yeah, like sharing a bottle of wine, puzzles. Like, I love a board game night.
Yeah.
I think we're long overdue for one. We've said, though, your husband hates them.
Yeah, he does.
Alistair, it's Aidan. Aidan hates them.
Aidan does hate them, but also he can get over himself, so.
Such a loving marriage.
Relationship.
So at first, George was to be the one seeking, and so Sarah ran upstairs to the bathroom and hid in the shower. However, after some time, George still hadn't come up to look for her, so she went back downstairs, and the two thought it would be funny to zip George up in a suitcase. I did also hear reports that he did go and find her, but either way, she hid in the shower, and then next they decided to zip him up in the suitcase.
Okay.
Sarah told officers that they were both laughing whilst they zipped him up, where they made sure to leave a small gap for him to put his fingers through to then unzip the suitcase himself when he needed to. Now, as your face screwed up, as I said about playing hide and seek.
Yeah.
Now, mine too. As we said, like playing games and painting over a bottle of Chardonnay sounds really nice.
Yeah, very romantic.
But they do lose me at hide and seek.
Yeah. And then
just because I don't know how fun it can be of two people.
Also, to start playing hide and seek and then him not come and find her.
And then he's just not really doing it, is he?
Yeah, and then just be like, oh, you know what we should do now? Let's zip you in a suitcase.
Yeah, and I don't know how that feeds into the playing hide and seek, because if you're zipping someone into a suitcase, what you meant to do, like, I wonder where he is.
Yeah.
Like, you know they're in a suitcase, and they're not going to wheel themselves off.
Yeah, like what kind of game is that? Like
either they don't know the rules, or...
Imagine going 43 years of your life and not knowing the rules of hide and seek.
42 years, Jessica.
42, sorry.
And yeah, it's all very weird.
Yeah.
But that's the story.
Okay.
We will dissect it later.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, Sarah then told police at around 12:30 a.m. she decided to go upstairs, where she accidentally fell asleep on the bed about half an hour later. She assumed that George would soon get himself out of the suitcase and join her in bed. Sarah then woke up the next morning, alone in the room, but just thought that George must already be downstairs looking for jobs online. Finally, at 11 a.m, Sarah actually got up and wandered down to the living room, but to her surprise, she didn't find George tapping away on the laptop job hunting, nor was he in the kitchen. Again, side note, I've also seen conflicting reports where Sarah states that she got up at 12:30 in the afternoon. So, either way, she's in bed for a long time, having a lie in.
Roughly 12 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
In fact, Sarah couldn't find George anywhere. It was then that she remembered that the previous night they had decided to zip him up into a suitcase. According to the arrest documents, Sarah freaked out and unzipped the luggage, where she found George unresponsive. Panicked, she called her ex-husband, who lived just a few minutes away, and he came round immediately, and then instructed Sarah to call 911. And so, at 1 p.m. on February 24th, 2020, Sarah Boone called 911, telling them the hide-and-seek story, and that upon unzipping the suitcase, she had found George unresponsive, purple, stiff, and not breathing. In fact, she kept telling the operator/medic on the phone that they were playing hide and seek, and like you can kind of hear the guy on the other end sort of being like, yeah, okay, like I don't care. Like obviously he doesn't say that because
but you can tell by tone
she's upset and he's talking her through CPR, but you can tell he's a bit like,
you've said.
Right now, that's not important. I'm trying to get you to save his life.
Yeah.
I don't actually care how it happened.
Yeah.
Because they don't. Like, while they're on the phone, they're just telling you how to do CPR.
Yeah. Can we bring this person
back to life?
Can we save them? Yeah.
So, of course, they send medics. They send the fire brigade, as is quite usual in America.
Yeah.
And they instruct and talk her through performing CPR on George. Sarah states that she's carrying out CPR on George and keeps saying, I'm doing it. She also says that she did it before she called.
Okay. Which is good practice. You should start CPR and then phone for the ambulance.
Yeah, and throughout she's saying this is horrific, this is horrible, and he's like, yeah, just carry on doing it. Again, he's just like, look, just you got to work for it, you got to do it.
Yeah.
But if you thought this case was already a bit off, and I'm guessing you probably do.
Yeah, we wouldn't be covering it if it was straightforward.
This is where it all takes a really weird turn.
Even weirder than hide and seek in a suitcase.
Yeah, this is tip of the iceberg. So the medics arrive and they walk in to find, well, what would you expect them to see?
Okay, so if I was going to walk in and she's telling me that she's been doing CPR, I would have expected to see him led next to the suitcase. She's pulled him out, led him down, her kneeling next to him. I would expect the ex-husband to be there because she's called him round as well.
Yeah.
And see her performing CPR, maybe the ex-husband, because obviously CPR is a very physically demanding task.
Yeah.
And you should change people regularly.
I mean, in fact, I today did my immediate life skills training, top-up training, and I had to do CPR on a mannequin, which is actually a lot easier than doing on a human.
Yeah.
And
they make you do it for about 5 minutes, don't they?
It's hard. Like, after a minute, I was like, can we swap?
Yeah, but they make you do it for like 5 minutes, and it is knackering. You're sweaty, you're out of breath.
Yeah. To this day, I've still never done it on a real human, touch wood.
No, me neither.
But that's God. Like a complete anomaly to have been a nurse for 4 years, student for 3, so 7 years in total. I never had to do it.
No, that's good.
It's like unheard of. I'm doing well, but that could all change, and I hope for my patient's sake it doesn't as well, just because I don't wish that on anyone.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, no, you're wrong, Jess. Instead, they walk in, and now the ex-husband is outside. More on that in a bit. But
that does kind of make sense because he could be flagging down the ambulance, but it's not what I would expect. But you could.
So he's outside. They walk in and they find that George is actually still in the suitcase.
Okay.
Where he is indeed purple, and unfortunately he is deceased, and there is nothing more they can do to preserve his life. He's died, and he has been dead for too long to do anything about it.
Yeah. Poor man's been in there for over 12 hours, so yeah.
Yeah. So apparently he's still in the suitcase. Now, again, I have also seen conflicting reports. More than one have said that he was still in the suitcase, which makes no sense because either that means you've got a few scenarios. That either means she's taken him out, done her own CPR, gone, nah, not working, put him back in.
Which, why would you?
Also, if he's stiff, these are difficult things to do.
Yeah.
And also, picking up a man, difficult.
Yeah.
Especially I don't know how I say it, like a dead weight, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but like a dead weight.
Yeah. It's not like people die and get lighter.
Exactly. Then called the ambulance or the paramedics. Whilst on the phone to them, or the EMT, I should say, in America.
Yeah.
They've said do CPR, and she's gotten him back out and done it, and then gone, oh, the ambulance is nearby, put him back in.
Yeah.
So either that's happened, or the more likely, she hasn't performed CPR at all.
And she's just left him.
Now, to her due a little bit, I think, and this is probably people are going to be like, what? But sometimes you know when someone's dead.
Yes.
And perhaps you can look at someone and be like, there is no point doing that. She does say on the phone that she's doing it. She doesn't sound particularly like she's doing it. I listened to the call. It's very readily available online. Feel free to look it up. She doesn't really sound like she's doing it, but she does say she is. Again, I don't know if any parts of that call are redacted. Perhaps they are.
Okay.
However, maybe she's looking at this guy saying, like, there's no way, but I'll pretend for the sake of it.
Yeah.
A bit weird, a bit suspicious, but it's whatever. I would say better to try.
Oh, God, yeah.
Than not.
Yeah, you never know.
But I do understand you might look at someone and be like,
they are too far,
What am I doing this for? That day, Sarah is taken in for questioning, but is released later in the evening with no indication this is any more than a game gone wrong. Though, of course, police still have their questions, which we all do.
Yeah.
As routine, they do ask to seize and search her personal items, such as her laptop, her phone, etc., and Sarah agrees to this without any hesitation. I also watched some footage of when police and medics are on scene. So Sarah stood outside of them and she looks very calm at first.
Okay.
She doesn't act like someone who has just found the dead body of her partner of 3 years inside a suitcase that she helped get him into.
Yeah.
She doesn't even really look like she's been crying. And I mean, it's been said before by us and by other podcasters, YouTubers, members of the true crime community. Different people do act in different ways.
Oh, definitely.
And of course, we all pray that we won't ever have to find out how we would act in these situations.
But yeah.
And perhaps for me, it's just because I'm such a crier that I know I would be crying.
Yeah. I mean, I guess she could be in such a state of shock that hasn't really processed it yet. Like, and if she, as you said, was doing CPR, maybe she was just like tunnel vision.
We honestly don't know how, no one can tell you how to act.
No.
But she just doesn't really appear stressed. She's quite calm. She asks to get her drink from inside, her Dr. Pepper. Good drink choice. Jess has got a Dr. Pepper. Good drink choice.
What a weird coincidence.
It's a very popular drink, Jess.
It is.
I do know someone who's never tried Dr. Pepper because the sound of pepper puts them off. I have told them it doesn't taste like pepper.
Yeah, no, nothing like pepper.
I was like, it's like cherry Coke.
Yeah, it's really, really sweet.
But, we move. So, yeah, she does keep asking, can I get my Dr. Pepper? And they're like, you can't go inside. This is a crime scene, potentially.
Okay.
It's only when they start asking her what's been going on, and this is when he has been pronounced dead. This is after everything, and they've also taken her outside.
Yeah.
When they start speaking to her, she does get more animated, speaking quickly, waving her hands about, and some of her facial expressions are really odd. Almost like she's having to sort of think about what she's portraying, but doing a really bad job.
Oh, okay. Like overacting it.
Yeah,
almost.
And again, this is readily available online. So
I'm going to have a watch of this.
Yeah, people should go and watch it because it's just like parts where she just does these facial expressions and it doesn't fit with the emotion she's portraying or trying to portray.
Okay.
So maybe she is just in shock. I know that feeling of shock. I experienced it earlier this year and, you feel very numb. I get that. It wasn't the same situation, of course.
No.
But I get that. But it doesn't seem sincere.
Okay.
But who knows? Regardless, the next day, they call Sarah back in for more questioning and they present her with their evidence. First, they confronted Sarah with the physical injuries that the medical examiner found on George. These included a black eye, multiple bruises and contusions, such as ones to the side of his forehead and his shoulder, a cut to his lip, and scratches to his back and neck. Sarah stated that she couldn't account for him having any of these injuries except for the scratches, which she stated occurred during sexual intercourse between the two of them. The medical examiner determined that George's cause of death was asphyxiation, which, of course, would line up with being zipped inside a suitcase, especially in like a weird position, which I think we all know you'd have to
you would have to
yourself.
have your chin,
like your chin
right in and
pressed against.
Yeah, that's hard to breathe like that alone.
Yeah,
let alone with being zipped inside something.
Exactly. So at least that one thing makes sense. However sad that one thing is.
Yeah.
So Sarah not being able to explain these injuries is pretty concerning.
Yeah.
These aren't injuries you'd expect to be able to get from being stuck inside a stationary suitcase.
Especially the bruises, because even if you were trying to get out, you don't have enough room in there to move enough to bruise. If that makes
and it's
sense.
worth saying that this isn't a hard suitcase. This is a fabric soft suitcase.
Oh, okay. So there's nothing to bruise himself on either.
Yeah, because for example, I have a hard carry-on suitcase.
Yeah.
And that, if you're really like trying to knock your head against it, I guess. I mean, good luck trying to get into that. It just felt fit an infant. But, you know, if you had a large, hard suitcase, you trying to push your head against it, I guess you could bruise and cut yourself if you're trying hard enough. I mean, I would think it would give sooner than that. But, you know, likely. Scratches you could explain as well from, you know, you get, I think everyone will kind of understand what I mean, but most suitcases have those almost belts that hold everything, and then they have those clips that clip on and they sort of hold everything in, that they kind of do nothing at all.
Oh, God, yeah.
I hope everyone understands what I mean, that sort of keeps all your stuff a bit more in, but not really. If you've overpacked, they're not going to help. You know, you could cut yourself on that. You could cut yourself on a zip from like an inner lining, or most suitcases have like an inner pocket.
Yeah, but again, I think you're talking mostly about like a hard shell suitcase. I've never had a soft suitcase with that in, so...
I've had soft suitcases with like inner pockets.
Oh yeah, with inner pockets.
Yeah.
But yeah, not with the clippy.
No. And I don't know how you'd get a cut lip, because in the position you're in, I'm imagining that your chin would be down and your knees would be against your chest. You could, of course, bust your lip on your knees. Yeah. But again, the suitcase would have to be thrown about a bit.
Yeah, and you would have to really, like...
I feel like I feel like you're more likely to hurt your nose first.
Then your lip. Yeah, I mean, I used to do gymnastics, and anyone who has done gymnastics knows that when learning somersaulting, you knee yourself in the face a lot. Like, it's just because you're in a tucked position.
It's the mechanism.
If you don't land right, you've got a knee in your face. And I've done that many times and not bust my lip open from a somersault.
Exactly. It's all very weird. So her not being able to explain these, weird.
Yeah.
So your movement of trying to get out of the suitcase may, of course, cause the suitcase to move. Like, it may fall over depending on what position it's in to start with.
Yeah, maybe.
And this could cause bruises for sure, as we said. Perhaps a swollen lip, but a cut lip? Assuming it's not from biting your lip, of course, which is also another possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, I often do it just by talking or eating. But that does seem unlikely.
Yeah.
And a black eye, I feel like that's quite forceful. Even having your knees up to your face. I was a pretty boisterous kid. I've also been accidentally punched in the face whilst like play fighting and wrestling. Yeah. I've never once had a black eye.
No, same. I've been elbowed in the face, kicked in the face, actually, and only ever had 2 black eyes.
Yeah, and, you know, again, I see lots of patients come in who have fallen over and hurt themselves in their face and not always having a black eye. It's not as easy to get a black eye as people think.
No. You have to be hit in the face.
Yeah, you have to be hit.
Yeah.
With quite force.
Yeah.
Quite a force. What might also be interesting is if you think about how you're getting into a suitcase, it's not going to be stood up.
No.
Of course, if you're like playing around, I mean, I have actually been zipped in a suitcase before because I have a massive suitcase. Like, when I say massive, I mean, I could get in easily. Okay, I am only 5'2", but it was a massive suitcase that I've got. Like, it's almost too big. And like, okay, people might wheel you around and stuff, but I feel like most people are then going to place you down flat.
Yeah, they're not
leave you stood up if they're concerned about your welfare.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all very weird.
Also, even if it was stood up and they unzipped it and you fell out, it's not like it's a big fall. You've literally
but even if you're in it and you're like moving about trying to get out,
it could fall. Yeah.
It could fall, but again, you're not going to, like you said, it's not a long distance. It's not a high.
Unless they left you at the top of the stairs and you fell all the way down the stairs, but...
Yeah. So, interestingly, according to the couple's neighbours, they told detectives how they had heard loud banging on the night the incident took place. Okay. And could this be perhaps how George came to be injured whilst in the suitcase, as Sarah roughly moved him inside the suitcase around their house?
Maybe.
You mentioned going down the stairs. Maybe, though you would think that this would perhaps have more catastrophic injuries, I would imagine.
Especially in a soft suitcase, that's not going to stop you breaking your ribs and...
Yeah, and you're not able to put your arms out or anything to...
soften it,
stop yourself.
Yeah.
But you would think if you were playing a game with someone you cared for and they were in a suitcase, you'd be carefully wheeling them about, perhaps, like having fun, like how Mikey did with me when I was in the suitcase.
Yeah.
You're not going to be haphazardly throwing the luggage around with them inside.
Also, like, how big is George? Like,
so I'm not sure. He's definitely slim.
Yeah.
From photos, but I've only seen headshots of him.
Oh, okay. Because obviously, so I'm thinking he must be quite like a small man because he can fit in a suitcase. Like,
he's definitely a slim man.
Yeah. But also,
when I say he's had substance abuse issues, that might give you an indication of how slim.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't know if he was short or not.
But then also for her to wheel him around the house. Like, I wouldn't be able to wheel Aidan around the house in a suitcase. He would be too heavy.
Do you think?
For me. Like, maybe drag it, but not enough for then him to get those injuries.
Yeah, I guess.
Do you know what I mean?
It would be difficult.
I wouldn't be able to wheel him to the stairs and push him. Well, I probably could if I was really motivated. But
I don't want to. I mean, it's very hard. Obviously, I can't say his height, and I'm assuming he's slim from what I've seen.
Yeah.
And from what I know, but yeah, I honestly can't answer that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything more than headshots, mugshots actually. So this, however, wasn't the most concerning thing to police. Wasn't the most concerning finding. No, it was in fact the videos they had found on Sarah's phone. 2 videos. 2 videos of George in the suitcase. 2 videos of George in the suitcase begging and pleading to be let out while Sarah laughed at him. So, police asked Sarah if she remembered taking any videos during the night, and it would be fair to assume that she did, because throughout the question with police, Sarah was adamant, and she really drummed it home, that neither her nor George were intoxicated that night. Now, it's maybe worth mentioning that alcohol was found in George's blood stream in his autopsy.
Okay.
However, Sarah did admit that they shared a bottle of wine during their date night.
Yeah.
So this is easily explained.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anywhere whether the amount of alcohol in George's blood was high or anything. They just said it was present.
Okay.
So I can't tell you if he was drunk or not. But throughout the questioning, Sarah repeated that she and George were not drunk. Although, again, both had a history of alcohol abuse and substance abuse.
Okay.
I believe just George had a history of substance abuse, but I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
She said that both still had their wits about them, that they remembered everything, and this, again, tracks. If you imagine 2 people sharing a bottle of wine, especially if both are used to drinking, it can be assumed that their tolerance is fairly high. I mean, half a bottle of wine will probably make me feel a little bit giggly.
But I'd remember the night.
But I'd remember the night. And if you're someone who often drinks to excess, abuses alcohol per se, I feel like that's not going to touch the sides.
Yeah, you're going to be fine.
Sarah also made it clear to police in the interview that she wasn't drunk that night because she did not want to be. She makes a big thing of being like, first of all, I don't want to be drunk. I'm trying to actively seek out activities that don't involve drinking. And if that's true, good on her. Like,
yeah, fair play.
I'm also doing the same at the moment, not because I have a drinking problem, just because I think every now and then I like to go through these things where I'm like, I want to enjoy life sober at the moment.
Yeah, I'm doing sober as well. Obviously.
Yeah, against your will.
Yeah.
And so, considering Sarah's sober state, you would assume that she would remember taking videos and photos on her phone during the course of the night.
Yeah.
However, and bear in mind, this is just the next day, it's not like a week later. However, when she was asked outright by detectives if she remembered taking any at all, she replied that she didn't and appeared confused. In fact, she added to her reply, "I think I took a picture of a dog." Officers then reiterated to her, "So to your recollection, no videos on Sunday?" And again, Sarah denied taking any, replying, "Not that I'm aware of." With Sarah backed into a corner, the officers decided that it was time to play their hand by showing Sarah the videos recovered from her phone. So, we're going to go through them.
Okay.
The first was about 2 minutes long, just over, and showed the large blue suitcase lying front down on the carpeted floor. So, the top of the suitcase where the zip is, you know, where you would normally open up to pack,
Yeah.
that's flat to the floor.
Okay.
Already a bit weird.
Yes, that's going to make it harder for him to get out.
Yeah, of course. And it's not going to be how he got in. So it's been flipped, either
yeah.
by him or her, who knows.
Yeah.
Assuming probably from her, but I mean if he was in a different position at one point.
Yeah.
The voice of Jorge Torres Jr. can be heard coming from the suitcase. Next is the exchange that happened between Sarah and George in the video, with Sarah behind the camera filming George zipped up inside the suitcase. George calls out, "Sarah, Sarah," to which there is no response. After a few more seconds, he calls out again, "Sarah." His voice sounds strained, and you can tell that he is struggling to breathe. Sarah then says from behind the camera, "For everything you've done to me." It should be noted that Sarah sounds drunk. She's slowing her words all into one in a way, like in that way that only drunk people do, like, "For everything you've done to me." Like it all becomes one breath.
Yeah.
George once again calls out, "Sarah," and she repeats, "For everything you've done to me." A bit clearer this time, let's give her due. Again, we hear George shout, "Sarah." She replies, "Fuck you." George shouts Sarah yet again, and she replies, "Fuck you." This time with more emphasis, and she sounds close to tears, if not already tearful. However, that changes when George continues to call out her name, and she then laughs and calls him stupid, and replies, "That's my name, don't wear it out," laughing. George then says to her, "Sarah, I can't fucking breathe, babe, seriously." And he does indeed sound breathless. He can speak in full sentences, but only just.
Okay.
And a side note is that, you know, when someone presents in my work in A&E, breathless, with breathing difficulties, one of the first things we'll assess or be asking, because we can do so just by saying, "Hi, I'm Claudia, I'll be your nurse, how are you today?" We'll see if they're able to breathe in full sentences, because this tells us a lot, gives us a lot of insight into the severity of their breathing condition.
Yeah.
So the fact that he can just about speak in short sentences is really concerning from like a clinical point of view. Especially when you can interpret that he is likely in like an unnatural position, like being scrunched up.
Yeah, he's going to be in a ball.
He's going to be in a ball, but also then the suitcase then being flipped the opposite way to how he got in.
Yeah.
It's going to be pressing and making it even harder for him to breathe. Like his breathing's not going to be getting better anytime soon. Sarah then replies, "Yeah, that's what you do when you choke me." Again, he's just said, "I can't breathe." She's saying, "Yeah, that's what you do when you choke me." Again, she is very noticeably slurring these words together. After she says that, George continues to call out her name to her, telling her that he is unable to breathe. In response, she continues to laugh or reply with snide remarks while sounding intoxicated. Remarks such as, "That's on you," and "Oh, that's what I feel like when you cheat on me," as well as, "Well, you should probably shut the fuck up then," when George says he can't breathe. She also says something incoherent to him at one point, like it's just sort of a drunken mumble that I personally couldn't make out. If anyone else can, please feel free to give me your thoughts. And then she ends the video by just slowly shushing him, just like one long shh. So this video not only shows that she may have in fact been drunk, she sounds very drunk, despite her earlier claiming to be sober that night. It also shows that this was not a game of hide and seek. It just wasn't a game.
No.
At least not to George, maybe to her, but he sounds clearly distressed in the footage. And again, these videos are everywhere online. This case is so online, it's unreal. Which is why I've decided not to play them on the episode, purely because I think that you would just be hearing them twice, because I would say go back, watch it, because you can see how he is, you can get the whole context and hear her intoxicated voice, her slurring, and him breathless, and you can see how he is.
Okay, so worth watching.
Worth watching for sure. I will send them to you after this, Jess.
Wonderful.
And everyone else, honestly, just type in Sarah Boone suitcase and so much comes up. You can also watch her full interrogation with police, where they play the videos where they then call him Jorge throughout.
Okay.
But it is a good video, other than getting his name wrong, you know. It also gives a lot of context to the dynamics of their relationships, I think. So, yeah.
Okay.
Just go watch it.
Yeah.
Furthermore, Sarah had told police that she had ensured that George had 2 fingers sticking out of the zip whilst he was inside the suitcase, and therefore he could easily have unzipped the luggage if he had wanted or needed to. However, in the videos, his fingers cannot be seen sticking out. It should be noted, though, that we can't see where the zips meet, so perhaps this is the case.
Also, if it's been flipped, even if you can get your fingers out, it's going to be harder to get out.
Yeah, but you can still get out the other way.
Yeah.
Like, suitcases work both ways, let's be honest. But if he could get out, why is he breathlessly calling to Sarah to be let out?
Yeah.
Like, he's not joking. He's not being like, oh, I can't breathe. He is, Sarah, I can't breathe.
Yeah.
You can't misconstrue that as like, oh, he's messing about.
Yeah.
He's not. Also, it occurred to me, like, if he had his fingers stuck out of the zip, would he perhaps have marks on his fingers indicating this?
Probably.
Like, I guess not necessarily, because zips obviously, it depends how much they were closed.
Yeah.
And if he moved his fingers out at any point, and, you know, there's just a gap rather than his fingers in the gap. But
still,
if
you
did have them sticking out, like, zips aren't smooth. They're jagged. They have those teeth that knit together to zip.
Yeah. Also, surely his position in the suitcase would have been, he would have had his hands wherever the zip was if he was trying to unzip it.
Yeah.
I know you haven't said about his position in the suitcase, but you would have thought...
In all honesty, I don't know his position because I didn't see any pictures. I did see one person on Reddit, of all places, speaking about his position, and perhaps they saw a picture that I wasn't able to find. I feel like there's only one way to be in a suitcase.
Curled up.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, curled up. Sort of as if you're like sat on the floor with like your head on your knees.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. But looking at the size of the suitcase as well in the videos, again, go watch the videos. It helps a lot.
Okay.
That's the only way I can see someone being in the suitcase.
Yeah.
I also do wonder if someone is in one side of the suitcase the entire time, would they not get pressure sores?
Probably.
I know he's a young, healthy guy, but we're thinking
But he was
he's
in there for
very
12
slim.
hours and
he's in there for a long time.
You can't move to relieve pressure.
No. And again, in work, we get people who sadly fall, often elderly people, fall and are on the floor for like 12 hours. I mean, anything more than an hour is considered a long lie.
Yeah.
And they get pressure sores. Now, obviously, they're older. They're more likely to get pressure sores because their circulation isn't as great. Their skin isn't as brilliant. They've got less fat on them. But you'd think there'd be some sort of obvious marking.
Also, if he is, as you said, a former substance abuser, he's probably not going to have the best quality skin.
No.
So
he's going to have bony
risk.
prominence.
Yeah.
Which,
he is more at risk.
also, bony prominence. Say you're a nurse without saying you're a nurse. Or a healthcare professional.
I love a good bony prominence.
Bony prominence. So Sarah was shown this video by detectives and she was just like, I don't want to watch it. She said it was upsetting to her. So she watched a bit and she's like, I don't want to see that. And like, yeah, I imagine it would be pretty upsetting.
Yeah.
And I would also love to know what was going through Sarah's head at that moment. Again, to me, there's two sides to this. Like, she might have been drunk and didn't remember these videos. She sounds drunk.
Yeah.
In which case, that like sinking feeling, like if you've ever been drunk and made a tit of yourself.
And then you see a video the next day and you're like, oh, for
That sinking feeling of like,
what have I done?
Or there's the other side. She fully remembers the footage, in which case it's dawning on her what they've seen and what is about to all come out.
Yeah, like, I can't keep this lie up anymore. They've got me.
How is she meant to continue being this innocent person who fell asleep on a bed?
Yeah. Also, I'd like to see the timestamp of the videos, because obviously if it was on a phone, it would have been, it would have said, and that would have lined up with her story as whether she did go to bed at 12 or...
Yeah, again, there's so much information out there about this case, but it is a lot of the same information reiterated. And it was even hard to find the date this happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so many reports are like February 2020, and I'm like, when?
What day?
Sarah told officers that after the video, she had flipped George the right way up, and I guess this was an effort to show like that she hadn't just mercilessly listened to her boyfriend's suffering.
Yeah,
and that she had tried to help him in some way. The police reply that they did find still photos which point to this being true.
Okay.
They found photos of the suitcase lying in different positions on the floor. They also point out to her that George is clearly saying that he can't breathe. However, that she tells him, fuck you, in reply. So they're being like to her, come on, the jig is up.
Yeah, but what actually happened? Stop lying.
Exactly. Next, the officers show her the second video that was taken 11 minutes after the first, In this, the suitcase is flipped the other way, as in it's right way up, as if you're packing it.
Yeah.
Presumably in a more comfortable position for George, as this is how he would have initially climbed in, but he's still going to be contorted.
Yeah.
The detectives asked Sarah to show them where in the thumbnail of the video she can see any fingers poking out, like she had originally stated that she had left George's poking through the zip. Sarah then changes tack and explains that the suitcase just isn't fully zipped up, that she had left a small gap before the end of the zip. However, police push against this claim. They state that they cannot see a gap or a hole, as they put it in the interrogation footage. Again, online. Additionally, they put it to Sarah that then why is he saying he can't breathe and why is he pushing against the sides of the suitcase as if he is stuck and trying to break it open? And he is. You can see it. You can see someone pushing up against it and it's moving.
Okay.
So if he can easily put his finger in and unzip, why is he doing that? Like,
yeah.
Obviously harder.
Yeah.
Back to this second video. This one is much shorter. So yeah, the first one, like I said, was just over 2 minutes long. This one is just 22 seconds long. So it just shows the suitcase being right way up and Sarah zooms in on the blue luggage. Once again, George can be heard shouting, "Sarah," from inside just once. And then the video ends with no reply from Sarah herself. The detectives point out to Sarah that while she keeps telling them that this was all a game of hide and seek, nowhere in the video is George laughing. The only person laughing is Sarah, like I said before. And so how does a relationship get to this point? To the point where one of the parties dies after being confined to a suitcase, whilst the other one laughs at their pain. Well, as you have probably already guessed, it appears that George and Sarah's relationship had been rocky and drama-filled, to say the least.
Yeah.
On both sides, there were allegations of violence and aggression. First of all, the same neighbours that told police that they had heard loud banging on the night of February 23rd also said that they had complained in the past to the building's management due to the loud music and shouting that Sarah and George would play at all hours, with little regard or consideration for the other residents nearby. And I kind of think this gives us some sort of context for what their relationship was like.
Okay, yeah.
And that alcohol was a factor.
Yeah.
Because we all know that like alcohol leads to heightened emotions, which then leads to arguments, and especially ones that get out of control. And then you do end up behaving in a way that you wouldn't normally let other people, such as your neighbours, see or hear.
Also, if it's happening at all hours of the day, like they obviously, like I would say normal people without a drinking problem would... They'd have a small time frame after work where they have a few drinks and then they go to bed still. Whereas if it's happening like if 10 o'clock in the morning, if you're drunk having an argument with your partner, that's not normal. That's not.
Yeah, like for example, if your neighbours have a party on a Friday night, you're not going to really necessarily remember that they do that. Or you might be like, yeah, sometimes they have a party on Friday night, but you're not really...
if it's a
note
one-off,
to a police investigation unless they ask, do they often have parties?
Also, if it's a Friday night, you're a little bit less like,
you're expecting it.
You're like, oh, it's a Friday night. Yeah, they're being loud, but
if it's a regular thing on all different like days of the week, which most people work a 9 to 5, I don't, but most people do.
Yeah,
it's going to stick out more, and it's going to show a bit more of a lifestyle that is more. Feel more towards alcohol than it is towards a routine.
Yeah, definitely.
And Sarah didn't work, and I don't know if that was due to alcoholism or what was the reason for that. But Sarah didn't work. I know that.
Okay.
When interviewed, Sarah's ex-husband and father to their son Lucas told police that George and Sarah had a whole fun history. That was a direct quote. Adding that the police had been called out to the couple, quote, quite a few times, end quote, and that George had been arrested around 5 times too. He was actually on parole for domestic violence charges against him by Sarah. However, the day after she had had him arrested, she had then bailed him out. I mean, this kind of seems like the definition of a toxic relationship.
Yeah. If you get someone arrested, like if you're saying that the domestic violence is that bad that you've got them arrested, you don't then go and bail them out the next day.
No, but I feel like a lot of victims do.
Yeah.
Because it is they say, and I think we've said this before, that domestic violence victims leave on average, I think it's 8 or 9 times before they actually leave for good.
Oh, wow.
And I imagine that feeds into the whole getting arrested thing. It's a push and pull, and it's...
Yeah, I actually watched that. I don't know if you've seen it on Netflix, that Devil in Ohio.
Oh, yeah, I watched that.
Yeah, because obviously, like, her mum is a abuse victim, and she's, like, trying to get her mum to leave with her and be like, come on, we can go stay with my grandma. And she won't go, and she's like, he's all I have.
Yeah, domestic violence is so difficult, and I think a lot of victim blaming comes from the whole, why I'd just leave him, why don't you just leave? And I think people fail to realise that
if it was that easy, there wouldn't be
everyone would just leave.
Yeah, there wouldn't be such a thing as domestic violence. Yeah,
it's not just a case of they're constantly horrible to you, but
they're very manipulative as well, aren't they? Abusers.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah.
I think if you watch Made on Netflix, not to sort of trivialise it, though that is based on a true story, if you watch Made on Netflix, that gives you an idea of it.
Yeah.
So this is the thing, whilst I do feel for Sarah as a victim of domestic violence, it wasn't one-sided. So we actually have some documents about 2 of the arrests between the couple.
Okay.
The first is from the 25th of July 2018, where Sarah called police at 1:52 a.m. after George kicked her in the eye. However, when police arrived, it transpired that this is a case of aggravated battery. So, according to the arrest affidavit, Sarah was in a bar that evening when she asked another man, a stranger, for a cigarette. This caused George to become upset, and so he left the bar. They both then returned to their home where the argument continued. It then became physical when George dragged Sarah up the stairs and he kicked her in the eye with his heel, which I think means he was dragging her up and he kind of accidentally kicked her in the eye, but obviously he's still assaulting her as he's dragging her up the stairs.
He's dragging her up the stairs.
It's not like, I didn't mean to do that. Like, yeah, you didn't mean to do that, but of course you were going to hurt her.
Yeah.
Reports of this are a little bit difficult to understand about the dragging up the stairs, because Sarah says he dragged her upstairs and she fell to the ground as he did so. But George says that he tried to walk upstairs to get away from Sarah, but she reached towards his throat with both her hands as he tried to do so, and then allegedly applied pressure to the point that George had difficulty breathing. At this point, it's all very weird, and there's evidence that both things happened. So at this point, George was sitting on the steps, kicking out, and therefore he said he may have struck Sarah. He stated that he believed that if he did not kick Sarah off of him, he would have been incapacitated by her in the end because she was strangling him. I'm going to say it again.
Yeah, fair.
He stated that he believed that if he did not kick Sarah off of him, then she would have incapacitated him by strangulation. Notably, George did have abrasions and red marks on his neck consistent with being strangled, while Sarah's right eye was also visibly swollen and bruised. So, obviously something happened.
Yeah, both of them did something.
Yeah, it's like these injuries happened, but how they happened, we've got he said, she said.
Yeah. Who do you believe? They're both as bad as each other in this situation.
Yeah. And in this case, it was made out as if Sarah was the guilty party. However, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Both Sarah and George refused medical treatment. They also refused to write a statement or to sign any dating violence paperwork.
Okay.
Court records indicate that both of them then posted bond and the case was eventually dropped. And that's all the information I have relating to this incident, as the affidavit is cut off and I couldn't find it in full online.
Oh, okay.
The second incident I found a part affidavit for, although a very small part, was a case against George from the 15th of June 2019, where police were called to the couple's address at 5:08 p.m. Upon their arrival, Sarah said that George had struck her on the face, head, legs and arms. She said that she begged George to stop, to which he replied, "You are going to die." Sarah added that George also flung her off the bed. Just before this affidavit cuts off, the sentence reads, Sarah stated this incident occurred due to George being upset about Sarah talking to a male. And then it just cuts off to a new line that we can't see. Again, Sarah did have evidence of being beaten. She had a red lump to the side of her face and scratches on her neck. However, once again, she also refused medical treatment this time. But she did fill out a domestic violence worksheet, and she did say she was willing to testify against George. George, in return, denied the allegations and was also unsure as to where scratches on his own neck had come from. He was arrested for battery, and the case did go to court, with Sarah testifying against him. And I think this was likely the case that Sarah's ex-husband was referencing earlier, the one on him with him being on parole.
Yeah, probably.
George was granted release from jail under the condition that he avoided consuming any alcohol or drugs, had no hostile contact with Sarah, and maintained a separate residence from her.
Which
in September
clearly didn't happen then.
Well, this is the thing. So it's like kind of weird saying no hostile contact, because I feel like they should just say no contact, because clearly these two cannot have contact and not be hostile.
Yeah.
They've got a hostile history, and that's not going to suddenly go away.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just seems very weird to just not be like, okay, restraining order. But I suppose she'd have to put the restraining order in, wouldn't she?
Yeah. But also, I don't know, did they live together? Or
they did, but I think they did stay apart.
Okay, but obviously on the night in question now, they've both consumed alcohol and they've been together.
So that was in... Oh, when did I say that was? That was in June.
2019? Yeah.
In September 2019, George was arrested again because he was found to be violating these terms after Sarah told police that she was sleeping when George kicked open the bedroom door and punched her in the head as she begged him to leave. George admitted to the responding officer that he was not supposed to be at Sarah's house, but refused to cooperate when the deputy asked him what had happened, instead telling him how Sarah often hit him, except he never called the police on her. This case was eventually closed in October 2019, just 4 months before George's death. So I don't know if he was on parole at the time.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if perhaps the ex-husband had got the wrong end of the stick. I do know that Sarah in the interview talks about him being taking classes in some sort of domestic violence classes.
Oh, okay.
So perhaps the conditions got changed.
Who knows?
They did begin living together again.
Yeah, I don't know how their legal system works.
No, either. And I do think it would be much more beneficial, to be fair, to say, rather than say, like, you guys can't be hostile towards each other, it'd be much better to send someone to classes to help them deal with their aggression and to help them see how domestic violence isn't okay.
Yeah.
But, you know, America also doesn't have the best track record for rehabilitation. So.
No.
In a police interview of George's younger brother, Jorge Torres, he states that George had been struck by Sarah in the past with a phone and had gotten a black eye. However, the brother didn't witness this for himself. He also stated that George would try to get away from Sarah by coming to stay at Juan's house. However, Sarah would soon come to pick him up and he would go back to her house with her. Again, it just really seems like these two can't keep away from each other.
Yeah, it sounds very toxic and very...
It sounds awful. It sounds like hell.
Yeah.
Again, it's difficult because I don't know who's the bad guy.
Yeah, they sound as bad as each other almost. Like that, it's not healthy for either of them.
No.
They keep going back. They're both the abuser and the victim in it. Like, you can't...
Yeah, they just need to both stay away from each other.
Yeah.
However, Juan did concede that he had also observed marks on Sarah, such as bruises on her arms and black eyes, likely inflicted by George. He relayed that the couple would beat each other. Juan described Sarah as often acting quote-unquote crazy, stating that he had witnessed for himself her entering the house already upset about something, and George then trying to get her to calm down and diffuse the situation. He speaks in the interview about how, like, one time he was around the house and Sarah came in, like, there's a guy peeing outside, and, like, really annoyed about it. And George just like, okay, chill. Like, she seemed like she sort of was always very, like, ready to go off. But that is according to George's brother, who is obviously going to be on George's side.
Yeah.
And also going to go off a lot of the time what George says.
Yeah,
this is an instance that he witnessed, but
still, yeah,
he's going to be biased,
of course.
Once again, though, Juan echoed what everyone else was saying, that Sarah and George had a tumultuous relationship, fueled and made worse by alcohol, stating that both drank to excess regularly. Juan did go on to expand on George's behaviour, admitting that in the past he had had physical fights with their other brothers, one row being so severe that George ended up hospitalised after being hit so hard that he suffered a significant injury to his eye socket.
Oh, wow.
George's brother spoke to him the night of the incident and stated that he knew his brother had an alcohol abuse problem, saying it was something that he had struggled with for a long time and that the family had tried to get him help in the past. However, he says that he knew when George was drunk and that on February 23rd he didn't sound overly intoxicated and in fact came across as calm, which for George was an indication that he wasn't that drunk, because apparently when he was drunk he was either like really excited and hyped up or like really like not aggressive but
easily influenced in his emotions. And
yeah, like he was sort of on one.
Yeah.
So, I don't know about you, but I'm just sensing a pattern here, like a pattern of jealousy and violence.
Yeah, from both sides.
Yeah, and I don't know if Sarah ever cheated on George, but if you remember in the first video of him in the suitcase, she references the fact that he cheats on her, and his behaviour of being ultra paranoid about her speaking to other men would be consistent with how people tend to behave when they are in fact the ones cheating on their partners.
Yeah.
Like, it's a projection, isn't it? Like, they know how they approach members of the opposite sex or the sex they're attracted to.
Yeah.
And, like, why they approach them, how they approach them. And so they assume that that's what their other half is doing.
Yeah.
Because in their head, there is no other reason or way to approach those people.
It sounds like they've probably both cheated on each other.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Maybe George had good reason to worry. Perhaps there was infidelity on both sides, or Sarah was doing it to get a reaction because she'd been cheated on. Like, that's also possible.
Oh, God, yeah.
It sounds like they probably did play a lot of mind games with each other.
Yeah.
But we simply don't know. And there's nothing to suggest that Sarah did cheat on him.
Okay.
No one says anything like that. I do want to say that reading through the affidavits, and perhaps you'll agree with me, I kind of feel as though George was the one who instigated most arguments and became physically aggressive towards Sarah first.
I mean, if even his brother saying that he fights with the family and he becomes aggressive when he drinks, then yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And if he's a jealous type of, like, he probably thinks her asking another guy for a cigarette is her instigating it, but actually he's the one who instigates the argument. She's just asked for a cigarette.
Exactly. It really is hard to ascertain, but I think it's worthwhile to note that I couldn't find anything relating to domestic violence in Sarah's first marriage with the father of her child. We don't actually get a name for that man unless anyone else can find it and correct me. Now, this isn't to say that there wasn't any domestic violence in Sarah's previous relationship, in her marriage, especially if perhaps she was the one to be abusive towards her ex-husband, because we all know that there is a lot of shame attached to men who are the victims of domestic violence at the hands of women, and there shouldn't be, of course. No. But, like, for example, do you remember when Terry Crews bravely came forward with his story?
Yeah.
Of being a victim of domestic violence.
And also, Terry Crews isn't someone you look at and go, oh yeah,
Terry Crews is a tank.
Yeah.
And I just remember the internet was full of, like, cruel jokes at his expense.
Yeah.
Jokes that just wouldn't, or you hope wouldn't be made if a woman was the victim.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, if a man gets hit by a woman, like, oh, but you should be able to defend yourself. And it's like, that's not the point.
He shouldn't have to defend himself. Like, it's not whether he should be able to. He shouldn't have to.
But also there is that whole stigma of men can't ever hit women, even in self-defense, which I don't agree with.
No, yeah, if someone is going to beat you, you should be able to. Yeah, you should be able to act in defence.
I mean, I in fact remember. This is a bit of a tangent, but I remember being in Leicester Square one time, and this girl sort of ran and jumped on this guy's back, but not in like a fun way, like in sort of quite an aggressive, like jumping on his back way. She knew him, and he sort of like pushed her off, and as he did, he like accidentally caught her in the face with his elbow. And all these guys started giving him shit, like, oh, you just elbowed that woman in the face, because she obviously made like quite a lot of noise about it.
Yeah.
And I remember coming to his defence and being like, no. She jumped on him aggressively first.
Yeah.
And they were all like, doesn't matter, you don't hit a girl. And I was like, well, no, because actually he was using just force. Like, he pushed her off and happened to catch her. he didn't go to elbow, like punch her in the face, like after she'd jumped off, after she'd gotten off. He just caught her. Yeah. And I know a lot of people find that, it's such a grey area. And I do think that is pretty black and white in terms of if someone attacks you, you defend yourself. Had she gotten off and he had punched her, different story. Yeah. Not necessary. But yeah, I feel like, getting back to the subject at hand, there could have been abuse by Sarah in her first marriage. However, there isn't any indication to this. It is kind of clear from the footage that the husband doesn't have much love for Sarah. Like, there's no love lost in the divorce.
Okay.
And he's, quite honest with the police about Sarah and George's past. And this is where he also says, I didn't go in the house because I didn't think it was a good idea. I didn't want to be near. Yeah. So that's why he was waiting outside. He literally just didn't want to go in because I think he was sort of like, he's dead. This is fishy. I'm not getting involved.
Fair enough.
Sensible.
Yeah. A rational way of thinking and acting. Yeah.
But again, from what we know, there wasn't any domestic violence between Sarah and her ex-husband.
Okay.
So this could also lend credence to the fact that George was the one who instigated a lot of it.
Yeah.
And then they got into a really bad pattern.
Yeah.
But I guess I should get on to charging and sentencing. In the end, Sarah Boone was charged with the second-degree murder of Jorge Torres Jr. Now, second-degree murder, which, I don't actually think there was any. I don't think she planned this.
No.
But some people disagree. Some people think it should have been first degree because she knew what was going to happen. I personally don't think she knew what was going to happen. Whilst I believe it was intentional to cause pain, I don't know if she intended for him to die.
No.
Do I think it was stupid? Yes. Do I think it's obvious to most? Yes. But we'll get on to that.
But also, if she is intoxicated at the time,
that's what I was gonna say.
She doesn't sound like she's in the best headspace, even if she's not intoxicated.
This is the thing, being drunk isn't an excuse, but being drunk does mean that you don't think everything through and you don't think logically step by step. If he's saying he can't breathe and he's in a bad position in a zipped up suitcase, he might suffocate. You just think he's going to be having a bad night.
Yeah. You're like, oh yeah, well you can struggle through breathing for, I'm going to go lie in a nice comfy bed. I don't want you in my bed. So actually I'm going to leave you in there.
Yeah.
Because if I let you out, you're probably going to hit me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this isn't justifying her actions, but it's just the fact that it's obvious to people with 2020, hindsight's 2020 and it's obvious to everyone in hindsight.
Yeah.
Who's sober.
Yeah. But yeah,
and also
I
not
don't
mad
think
at this person for abusing them. No, I don't think so. Sarah's trial, however, has been postponed numerous times, and all throughout she has maintained her innocence, sticking with her story that it was just a game gone wrong. Horribly wrong. Right now, her trial is set for November 2022. Ooh. But honestly, who even knows at this rate? Because it was set so many times. It's had the date of May 16th, it's had August 29th, it's had June and now November.
Why does it keep getting postponed? Do you know, or just...
So I think one of her lawyers dropped out. And then I think...
I'm assuming initially it was COVID.
I presume initially COVID. And then I think one of her lawyers dropped out. She's written to her judge about a few things. It's just a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
But hopefully in November...
That's so soon.
It will go forward. And I think it is likely that she'll be found guilty of second-degree murder. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think... Yeah, I agree. I don't think she intended to actually kill him. I don't think it was planned. Yeah, I think there's better ways of... there's better ways as well.
Yeah, there's better ways as well. And if you're going to plan a murder and look more innocent...
Yeah. Then just
especially if you've already got this history that backs up that he's hit you before.
Yeah.
Even just again, not giving people ideas, but just stabbing him, or America Has Guns, shooting him.
Yeah.
And saying it was in self-defense.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways it could have gone.
But yeah, there's definitely better ways to go about doing things, making sure he dies and making sure you look a lot more innocent.
Yeah.
I will say that, bless her soul, I don't think Sarah's the most intelligent human I've ever come across.
Even just by the cover story, like you can kind of tell.
Yeah, bless her heart. But I don't know what to think. On one hand, the videos are horrific and show someone really enjoying their boyfriend's suffering and subsequent slow death. You know, she's laughing at him. She's telling him, "Fuck you." Yeah, like, that's my name. Don't wear it out. Which, by the way, get a better retort.
Yeah, come on.
But she was also being abused. Definitely physically.
Yeah.
According to the records mentioned.
Probably emotionally as well, if it went on for that long.
Well, definitely emotionally. She can't even speak to other men without an argument being caused.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got at least 2 times where she's spoken to another man and an argument has happened that has gotten so bad that the police have been called.
Yeah.
Of course, none of that gives you the right to kill someone.
But still, they were in a very unhealthy relationship. They were both unstable individuals.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, again, this is coming from comments on YouTube and on Reddit, but everyone is very critical of her. And how, you know, I saw people calling her a narcissist, saying she has narcissistic personality disorder, which might be the case, sure.
Yeah.
But I actually think she is more of a victim than a lot of people are saying.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely given... I know she's refused medical treatment, but the fact that it was...
But we see that.
Yeah, but the fact that it was offered to her means that she probably needed it.
I mean, he's also been offered it.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, like I said, I think they're both as bad as each other, but I do think, from what I've read, he instigated it a lot. And we know from his own brother that he gets in fights with other people, whereas we do not know from anyone else that she got in fights with other people.
Yeah, it's very...
And that in itself is telling to me. Now, again, we do not know the full story. She could have been in fights every day of the week with other people.
Yeah.
She could have abused her ex.
Yeah, and he just hasn't come forward about it, yeah.
Exactly. He's well short of her. They've been divorced at the time it happened for 1.5 years.
Yeah.
He didn't seem to have much care for her. But now Sarah did suffer with alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
And it was stated by her ex-husband that she wasn't reliable when it came to seeing her son. In fact, on the day George died, or was found dead, she was supposed to be having Lucas, her son.
Okay.
But her ex-husband couldn't get a hold of her, which he stated to not be out of the ordinary. And that's, in fact, how she ended up then calling him, because he picked up, like, "Yeah, I've been trying to get hold of you." And she was like, "Come around, this has happened." And as soon as he came around, he's like, "Yeah, you need to call police."
Yeah.
But being an alcoholic is a disease in and of itself. They both suffered with it. But yeah, being an alcoholic is a disease in and of itself, something that they both suffered with.
Yeah.
But being an unreliable mum, that could be linked to the alcoholism, of course. And although it's not nice, it's awful for Lucas, it's awful for the dad, it doesn't make a murderer either.
No.
Like, you can be a lousy mum, there's plenty of lousy parents out there.
But they're not murderers. Yeah.
Overall, I think you can just tell I'm really conflicted. Like, no one deserves to die, even if they're abusive. What they do deserve to get is their comeuppance from the law.
Yeah.
And they deserve to be left. And it does sound as if George had his own demons. And alcohol played a huge part in that. And Sarah, you know, again, adds odd acts. And Sarah, again, acts really oddly throughout the phone calls, throughout the questioning. But do I think she's a cold-blooded murderer? No. Do I think she's a narcissist? No.
Yeah,
do I think
you can't judge that from the information we've got. Yeah.
Do I think she had enough and tortured someone who abused her? Yes.
Yeah.
Do I think she meant for him to die? No. Do I think it should have been painstakingly obvious that he could have died?
Yeah.
Yes. Do I think he deserved to die? No.
Yeah, it's a very hard to see how you should feel about it, because although he is the victim in this murder case, she is still a victim of abuse from him. And it wasn't...
I feel like no one wins here.
No, it did almost escalate to him, like their fights, but it wasn't like they were having an argument and she had like a rage and saw red and killed him.
No. In fact, again, during the questioning, she says, "We had a really good day. We had one of the best days."
Which makes me question, like, why? Why that day?
It's so weird. It's honestly such an odd case, and I mean this in the most respectful way possible, because of course I never want to lose sight of the fact that we're talking about a dead person who has a family, and also a woman whose life is about to be changed.
Yeah,
with this sentencing, and her son.
Yeah, her son has to still grow up without a mum.
But I am really interested to see this go to trial and see how it plays out and see what else comes to light.
Yeah.
Because other things will, of course. This won't be the full story being released before everything goes to trial. But yeah, I really want the trial to go ahead so we can see what happens. But mostly I want the trial to go ahead so the Torres family can have peace. And so Lucas can have a bit of peace. Yeah. I mean, this isn't going to go well for his mum, but at least he'll know what's happening.
Yeah. More
and obviously,
of the story.
I hope he lives a great life. Because looking past George as the victim, and whomever he may have been in his life, however he may have acted, he had a family.
Yeah.
He had brothers who loved him. He had a mother who loved him. He had a father who loved him. He also had 3 children of his own.
Oh, really?
And all these people, they deserve to grieve. And for a lot of people in murder cases, that grief and that processing is often put on hold and prolonged whilst waiting for the sentencing. And
it all gets
I hope
brought
November
up as well, multiple times. And
there's something that even if you're moving on in a way that you only can with grief that you never truly move on.
Yeah.
Even if you're moving forward in some capacity, you still have that date in your mind.
Yeah. You just want
when
justice.
That keeps getting pushed further and further away, it's never ending. You can't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Even though it's probably not a light in their case. And so I really hope November goes forward for their sake.
Yeah.
Because regardless, us
give
true crime...
a bit of closure at least.
Yeah. And okay, we're interested in true crime and we want to see it go ahead because we've got that interest, but it's not about us.
No.
It's about the families.
Yeah.
And we will update you as and when the sentencing goes ahead. Perhaps more things will come out that will make us think differently of either party. But I do think that my stance for now is that she had had enough and snapped.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I feel slightly in her favour. Despite how odd she acts in police interviews, I feel slightly in her favour, and I think I'm in the minority there. But
yeah, I'll let you know how I feel after I've seen the videos.
Yeah,
and because then I can get a bit more of like a judge of her character. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it is her fault. She should have let him out.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Also, as I said, she's still the victim. She still didn't intend. I still don't think she intended for this to happen.
No.
The way
it's
did.
Also odd.
Yeah.
Please let us know what you think.
Yeah.
If you've seen anything that we haven't covered in this that you think really would change our thoughts or, even add an element to it, please let us know. But remember, always remember that there are victims in this case other than George, other than Sarah.
Yeah.
As we said, there's a family. Always remember that whilst to us this is a story and something that we go, oh, that's interesting. This is someone's real life, someone's real grief, someone's real death, someone's real worst day.
Yeah, that is someone's
and we can't lose sight of this.
Yeah, someone's son, someone's brother, someone's dad.
Yeah. To us, it's a story. To them, it's their life. When commenting, I always want everyone to please be respectful of that fact.
Definitely.
So, Jess, do you have anything else to add?
No, that was a very interesting case, though.
Yeah. It was actually Mikey who suggested this one. He saw it because I watched it.
Yeah.
And then it came up on his suggestion. I feel like quite a few people it might have come up for. But, I said, I don't have any cases. What should I do? And he was like, how about the suitcase? And I was like, the suitcase case?
The suitcase case?
Suitcase case. So, we can thank Mikey for that, I guess.
Thanks, Mikey.
So with nothing else to say other than always be respectful and remember that there are victims in every story. I guess we'll just end by saying, stay spooky.